I was 25 when my mother sat me down in her living room and told me she was getting remarried. It wasn't a shock, not really. She had been dating a man named Frank for almost 3 years, a quiet, dependable contractor who had slowly become a fixture at our family dinners and holiday gatherings. He was the kind of man who fixed things without being asked, who always brought a bottle of wine and a bouquet of flowers, who looked at my mother like she had hung the moon. I was happy for her, genuinely happy. She deserved someone solid after my father had left us with nothing but broken promises and unpaid bills. But when she told me that Frank had a son who would be moving in with us, I felt a twist in my stomach that I couldn't quite name. His name was Alex. He was 23, 2 years younger than me, and he had been living with his mother in Arizona until she decided to relocate to Europe for a job opportunity. Frank had full custody now, which meant Alex was coming to live in the house I had grown up in, the house that still smelled like my grandmother's lavender sachets and my mother's cinnamon coffee cake. I had met Alex once before at a family barbecue a year earlier. He was quiet, almost sullen, with dark hair that fell over his eyes and a way of looking at the world like he was perpetually unimpressed. He had a guitar slung over his shoulder and a notebook tucked under his arm, and he had spent most of the afternoon sitting in the corner, picking out melodies that seemed to exist in a world entirely his own. I had thought he was strange, maybe even a little rude. I hadn't given him much thought after that. He arrived on a gray October afternoon just as the leaves were starting to turn. I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard the front door open and my mother's voice, bright and welcoming. I walked into the living room and there he was, standing in the middle of the room with a duffel bag and that same guitar. He was taller than I remembered, leaner, with a sharper jawline and eyes that were the color of whiskey, warm and unsettling. He was wearing a worn-out leather jacket and boots that had seen better days, and he looked around the room with an expression that was hard to read. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Welcome to the madhouse." He looked at me and for a moment I felt like he was seeing right through me. "Thanks," he said, his voice low and rough. "I appreciate you guys letting me crash here." "It's not crashing," my mother said, beaming. "It's home now. This is your home, Alex. We're family." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I watched him carry his bags upstairs, his footsteps heavy on the creaky stairs, and I felt a strange flutter in my chest. I pushed it away, told myself it was just nerves. I had never been good with change, and this was a big one. A new person, a new dynamic, a new energy in the house. It was going to take some getting used to. The first few weeks were awkward. Alex kept to himself mostly. He would emerge from his room in the late morning, grab a cup of coffee, and disappear into the garage to work on his music. He had converted the space into a makeshift studio with microphones and cables and a laptop that seemed to be permanently open. I could hear him playing sometimes late at night when the house was quiet. The music was beautiful, haunting, full of longing and loss. I would lie in my bed listening, and I would feel a strange ache in my chest. I didn't know how to talk to him. He was so different from the people I was used to, the safe, predictable people who populated my life. I had a boyfriend named Ben, a sweet, steady guy who worked in marketing and had a face that looked like it belonged on a greeting card. Ben was everything Alex wasn't. Ben was open and talkative, always ready with a joke or a story. He was the kind of guy who held doors and brought flowers and remembered anniversaries. My mother adored him, and so did everyone else. He was the perfect boyfriend, the kind you married and built a life with, but Ben didn't make me feel the way Alex did. Ben was safe, predictable. Alex was dangerous, unknown. And the more I tried to ignore him, the more he seemed to occupy my thoughts. It started with small things. I would be in the kitchen, making dinner, and Alex would walk in and my heart would skip a beat. I would be in the living room, reading, and he would sit down across from me and I would forget what I was reading. He didn't say much, but when he did, his words seemed to carry weight. He would make observations about things I had never noticed, point out patterns in the world that I had been blind to. He saw things differently, and I found myself wanting to see them through his eyes. One night I couldn't sleep. I walked downstairs barefoot and found him in the kitchen nursing a glass of whiskey. He was wearing a worn-out t-shirt and jeans, his hair disheveled, and he looked up at me with those whiskey-colored eyes. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "No," I said, sitting down across from him, too much on my mind. "Want to talk about it?" I shrugged. "I don't know. I don't even know what it is. It's like everything is fine, but it's not. Like I'm living someone else's life, and I don't know how to get back to my own." He nodded, his eyes steady on mine. "I know that feeling. It's like you're walking through a fog and you can't find your way out." "Yeah," I said, "exactly like that." We talked for hours that night. About life, about dreams, about the things we were afraid to admit to anyone else. He told me about his mother, about the distance that had always existed between them. He told me about his music, about the way he poured all his feelings into his songs because it was the only way he knew how to process them. I told him about my father, about the way he had left and never looked back. I told him about Ben, about the way I felt like I was drowning in a life that wasn't really mine. You deserve to be happy, he said, his voice soft. You deserve to find something real. I looked at him, and in that moment I felt a connection that I had never felt with anyone else. It was like he saw me, really saw me, in a way that no one else ever had. I wanted to tell him how I felt, but the words wouldn't come, so I just sat there, our eyes locked, and I let myself feel the pull between us. A few nights later it happened. We were in the garage, and he was playing his guitar, and I was sitting on the floor listening. The song was slow, melancholy, and it seemed to wrap around me like a blanket. When he finished, he looked at me, and there was something in his eyes that made my breath catch. Alex, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't say anything. He just set down his guitar and leaned in, and I leaned in too, and our lips met. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like we were both afraid of what was happening, but then it deepened, became urgent, hungry. It was a kiss that said everything we had been holding back. It was a kiss that changed everything. After that night, we couldn't stay away from each other. We met in secret, stealing moments whenever we could. We would go on late-night drives to places where no one knew us, and we would talk about running away together, about starting over somewhere new. We built a fantasy, a world where we weren't step-siblings, where the rules didn't apply. I was falling for him deeply and irrevocably, and I knew it was wrong. But I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. He made me feel alive in a way that Ben never had. He made me feel seen, understood, cherished. With him, I was whole. With him, I was myself. The guilt was always there, lurking in the background. I would see Ben, and I would feel like a fraud. I would see my mother, and I would feel like I was betraying her trust. I knew that I was playing with fire, that the truth would eventually come out, but I pushed it away, buried it deep, and told myself that I would deal with it later. Ben started to notice the distance between us. I would flinch when he touched me. I would make excuses to avoid spending time with him. He would look at me with those steady, trusting eyes, and I would feel like the worst person on earth. He asked me what was wrong, and I told him it was nothing. I was just tired. I was just stressed. I was just going through a rough patch. He believed me. He always believed me, and that made it worse. The confrontation came on a Sunday afternoon. Ben had come over to the house, and he found me in the garage with Alex. We weren't doing anything inappropriate, not in that moment. We were just sitting there talking, but the intimacy of the conversation was unmistakable. I saw Ben's face as he walked in, the confusion, the hurt, the dawning realization. What's going on? He asked, his voice flat. Nothing, I said, standing up too quickly. We were just talking. Ben looked at Alex, then back at me. I'm not stupid, Emma. I know something is going on. You've been distant for weeks. You barely look at me, and now I find you in here alone with him. It's not what you think, I said, but even I could hear the lie in my voice. Then tell me what it is, he said. Tell me the truth. I couldn't find the words. I just stood there frozen, my heart pounding. Alex stepped forward, his face pale. It's my fault, he said. I pushed her. It's not her fault. Ben laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. You pushed her? Are you kidding me? She's a grown woman. She made her own choices. She chose to betray me. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. Ben looked at me, his eyes full of hurt and anger. I loved you, he said. I loved you, and you destroyed me. He walked out of the garage, and I didn't follow him. I stood there, tears streaming down my face, watching him go. A part of me wanted to run after him to beg for forgiveness, but I knew it was too late. I had made my choice, and I had to live with the consequences. After Ben left, everything fell apart. My mother was devastated. She couldn't understand how I could do this to her, to Frank, to our family. Frank was furious, heartbroken by the betrayal. The house was filled with silence and tension, and I felt like I was suffocating. Alex and I tried to make it work. We moved into a small apartment together, a cramped studio in a neighborhood that was just starting to gentrify. We were determined to build a life, to find happiness in the wreckage. But the guilt was a constant companion, a shadow that followed me everywhere. We started to fight. We fought about the past, about the choices we had made, about the people we had hurt. We fought about the guilt, the shame, the constant fear that we had made a terrible mistake. We clung to each other, desperate and afraid, but the connection that had once felt so strong was starting to fray. One night, Alex didn't come home. He had left a note on the kitchen table saying that he needed some space, that he needed to figure out who he was without me. I read the note over and over, tears streaming down my face, and I realized that I had lost him too. The love that had felt so all-consuming had turned into a cage, a prison of guilt and regret. I'm 32 now. I've rebuilt my life piece by piece. I have a job I like, a small apartment with a view of the city, and a few friends who don't know my past. I've started dating again, cautiously, tentatively. I'm still afraid of getting too close, of making the same mistakes, but I'm trying. I'm trying to believe that I can love again, that I can trust again, that I can find a love that doesn't come with a price tag. I still think about Alex sometimes. I wonder where he is, if he's happy, if he ever thinks about me. I wonder if we could have made it work, if we had been stronger, braver, more willing to fight for what we had. But I know that some things are not meant to be. Some loves are too complicated, too messy, too painful. Some loves are better left in the past. My mother and I are starting to rebuild our relationship. It's slow, painful work, but we're getting there. She's forgiven me in her way. But the trust is gone, and I don't know if it will ever fully come back. I don't blame her. I broke something precious, something that can never be fully repaired. I think about the person I used to be, the girl who had it all figured out. I miss her sometimes. I miss the simplicity of her life, the clarity of her convictions, but she's gone and she's not coming back. She was killed by a series of choices, a cascade of moments that led to a single devastating truth. I was the villain in my own story. I was the one who tore everything apart. The thing I've learned, the thing I carry with me every day is that love isn't always enough. It doesn't conquer all. It doesn't make things right. Sometimes love is just a spark, a beautiful, terrible spark that sets everything on fire. And when the fire dies, when the smoke clears, you're left standing in the ashes. You're left with the guilt, the regret, the aching emptiness of all the things you lost. I'm still trying to piece my life together. I'm still trying to figure out who I am without the shame, without the secrets. Some days are easier than others. Some days I feel like I'm making progress. Other days I feel like I'm back at the beginning, standing in the garage, watching my world collapse. But I keep moving, that's all I can do. I keep moving and I try to be better. I try to be the person I should have been all along. I don't know if I'll ever find another love like the one I had with Alex. I don't know if I want to. It was too intense, too consuming, too destructive. It burned me alive and left me for dead, but I'm still here, I'm still breathing, I'm still trying, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Keep moving, keep hoping, keep believing that someday the guilt will fade and the love will be nothing but a memory. A memory of a time when I was so lost, so desperate that I let a forbidden spark destroy everything I had. I look back on those days now, the days of stolen kisses and secret meetings, and I wonder if I would do it all again. If I knew then what I know now, would I have let myself fall? The answer is complicated. A part of me wishes I had walked away, had done the right thing, had spared everyone the pain. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the way he looked at me, the way he made me feel alive, knows that I wouldn't have been able to resist. I was too young, too hungry, too desperate for something real. And he was real, he was so real. He was everything I had ever wanted, even though he was everything I could never have. The scars are still there, deep and jagged. They'll never fully heal. I'll always carry the weight of what we did, the people we hurt, the love we betrayed, but I'm learning to live with it. I'm learning to carry the weight without letting it crush me. I'm learning to forgive myself slowly, painfully, one day at a time. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever find someone who can love me despite all the broken pieces, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that someday I'll be able to look in the mirror and see someone who's worthy of love. I'm hopeful that someday the guilt will fade and the love will be nothing but a distant echo. A reminder of a time when I was young and foolish and desperate enough to believe that a forbidden spark could save me. That's my story. It's messy and ugly, and it doesn't have a happy ending. It's just the truth, the raw, unvarnished truth of a woman who made terrible choices and is still trying to find her way back. I don't expect anyone to understand. I don't expect anyone to forgive me. But I hope that maybe, just maybe, someone out there will hear my story and think twice before they let a forbidden spark burn them alive. Because it will burn. It will take everything you have and leave you with nothing but ash and regret. I'm still standing, though. I'm still here, and that has to count for something.